In the beginning, there was war. Two siblings clashing over dominion of a realm neither had ever intended to rule. When the dust settled, Avanda, the mother and moon, was the victor. However, even in this victory, Yath, her brother, could not be completely quelled. And so it is we have our night, and we have our day. Hi, welcome to Vornyana. There's a lot to cover to get you primed for what's coming, so I'll try to keep it as simple and sweet as I can while touching on all the basics. Vornyana is a world that has 16 hours of night and 8 hours of day. During the day, the sun is so hot that most creatures cannot stand to be openly exposed to it for more than an hour or two, with exceptions. You see, the sun and moon of Vornyana are seen as the gods. Avanda's heart, the moon, and the eye of Yath, the sun. Some races are born in the favor of Yath and are immune to the sun's punishing heat. These folk are known as Beaconborn. Notable Beaconborn groups would be Soulborn Halflings, Fire Ganassi, and Solari humans. Before we dive into the history and current events, I think it's important that we cover the Pantheon. First, the Major Divine. Avanda's Embrace is the religion that centers around Avanda, the Mother and Moon. She stands for justice, order, and peace and is the most popular of the gods. Wrath of Yath is the religion that worships Yath, the Sun. His domains are wrath, revenge, and instinct. Morvog's Hunt is the religion that focuses on Morvog the Huntmaster. He is the cunning god that controls focus, patience, and presence, and was once the lover of Avanda, the father of Alestri. Song of Alestri is a religion that focuses on Alestri the harpist. She is the daughter of Avanda, her only. She cares for her uncle, visiting Yath daily by putting him to sleep with her music so his rage may be quelled, even for a time. Her domains are creativity, intelligence, and studiousness. Weepers of Rhapsidiu. This religion focuses on Rhapsidiu, the mourner. He speaks to the domains of sorrow, contemplation, and reflection, and is said to be the cause of rain. He has feelings for Alestri, but his closeness to her uncle prevents that from developing. And finally, Marlik's Sentinels, who serve Marlik the Sentinel. Her domain is confidence, integrity, and decisiveness, and she is the lover of Avanda. She guards viciously the wall that protects her sacred home and employs her followers as guards of the realm. With those out of the way, let's speak on the Minor Divine. The Minor Divine are different from the Major Divine, as they do not have gods in the traditional sense. Rather, these are locations, creatures, etc., that have been given power from the amount of belief people have in their will. The Order of the Tide focuses on a creature called the Kraken, and is largely worshipped by fishermen, sailors, and seaside savages. The Crawlers are those who worships Torturon, a leviathan turtle that has a mountain on its back which people have built cities upon. Tomb Bearers, though they go by many names, are the group of assassins that follow the will of the Soul Watcher, a strange specter that lives on the Auric Isles, emerging only on the 1st and 4th day of each month. Guards of Anzarak. These are generally crazed folk who worship the fallen temple of Anzarak in the southern deserts of Timberschmidt. It's an abandoned ruin, and who knows why they're fanatical about it. Twilight's Eyes worship the Grove of Fallen Stars on the southeastern continent of Dotlan. A powerful crystal plummeted from the sky one starry night a long time ago, and brought with it a spring and pond and wonder. Alright, that's the whole Pantheon covered. Now let's get into the major land masses and then we'll talk history. Timberschmidt is one of 3 continents with lay anchors. The others include Morgrim and Levian. They are the 3 largest continents in the world of Vornyana. The other large land masses include Frasha, the Auric Isles, and Dotlan. There are smaller islands and places not worth mentioning in the grand scheme of things, but those are the bigger ones. Now for history. The story of Vornyana is very old, but the humanoid history only runs about 2,000 to 3,000 years back. According to the Imperium, and we'll get to who they are shortly, records of the world start with an event known as the Scorch. The Scorch was the creation of Vornyana when Avanda and Yath fought. The result of their divine conflict left the planet of Vornyana in existence and Avanda to rule over it, but Yath keeps his eye on the world as well. Up until about 200 years prior to our story, there isn't much going on. Groups are beginning to spring up, cities built, and the standard warfare for control exists. In Timberschmidt, regions are created to separate cultural influences. In Levian, there is a booming mining industry, and the mines replenish themselves on a yearly basis. And in Morgrim, magic is being studied for the first time and broken down into 4 classifications. This is one of the major developments in Vornyana's history. Magic was not incredibly common about 400 years ago until a drow by the name of Gurn helped found the first Arcanum in Morgrim. He determined that there were 4 classifications of magic: Divine, Arcane, Pact, and Wild. Divine magic is the kind that comes from druids, rangers, clerics, and paladins. It can be detected, but you can't pinpoint the source. In other words, you can tell when someone has casted divine magic, but you can't tell which god they summoned it from. Pact magic comes from ancient deals and rare, powerful secrets. It can be detected, and it always gives off a distinct source, so if it's Fae or Fiend or whatever. Arcane magic comes from the ley lines of the world and is drawn upon by studious casters. It can be detected and located with relative precision, and the source is always ley lines. And wild magic. It has no source. Only one class in Vornyana actually uses it, and that's sorcerers, but it cannot be detected and, as said, has no source. This makes it powerful, and not everyone can even tap into it. Humans have the most natural inclination for it, but they are far from the only ones who've used it. Well, 200 years after the founding of magical schools and the discovery of the types of magic, something happened. The early conflicts weren't recorded as they were brutal and sudden and very confusing, but later battles eventually became known as the Arcanagra. This is the first time we see magic at a destructive apex in the world of Vornyana, and the conflict ended with an assault on Morgrim's Arcanums by a Tarask. In an effort to save everyone, the now Archmagi Gurn created a magical detonation using his body as a catalyst and killed himself. The resulting blast destroyed nearly half of Morgrim and created a landmass which is now known as the Gurn Bay, or a lack of a landmass. As a result, the Arcanagra, about 120 years later, 80 years before our journey, creates the Imperium of Lorne. The coalition comes into existence as an effort to control the flow of magic and is a united front across 3 major continents. The edicts put in place strictly prevented the use of pact and wild magic and limited the use of divine magic based on the gods worshipped. This was followed a few years later by an event that has shaped the world today, the Anchoring. Several massive spires were drilled down into the ley lines of the world, and massive crystals known as true ley shards were used to catalyze the arcane flow like a spigot, effectively changing the access to magic for the majority of the world. Arcane magic is incredibly limited unless you possess a government-issued ley shard, which will allow you to cast more powerful spells. Divine magic is only allowed if you're a worshipper of Morvog, Avanda, Marlix, or Elestri. All other gods, major and minor, are considered heretical, and worship of them is prosecutable. Pact magic is strictly forbidden, and wild magic is dealt with when discovered by execution. A pact was signed to represent these beliefs, and a discussion was held at a council meeting about wild magic, the most dangerous of them all. Due to humans' rapid growth in the last 200 years and their natural inclination for wild magic, it was determined that the population needed to be culled. Humans had a largely tribal society that were born of the gods' blood. All humans, you see, are beacon-born children of Yath. But despite their attunement to wild magic and the divine, they could not stop the oncoming genocide. Now there are only roughly 8,000 to 10,000 humans left in the world, and they have been mostly driven into slavery and hiding. In addition, the Imperium began to take slaves of all beacon-born for their attachment to Yath. Plenty of these two groups, human and beacon-born, still walk around, but it's dangerous for them to be alone, and so they tend to travel in groups or align themselves with guilds. The Imperium needed a way to control magic. There was no guarantee they could put a limiter if they didn't have some way to control the most common kind, arcane. So after the ley anchors were in place, and the ley shards a measure, the enforcement came. Enter the Anticarnum, or Spellhounds, as they are more commonly known. These elite knights of the Imperium are few and far between. They wield powerful weapons and are attuned to magic in a way that lets them seek out and destroy those who practice it illegally. They are virtually immune to spells and actually bolster their strength from their consumption. This makes illegal spellcasting very risky. And historically, that's roughly where our story picks up. Now, the last thing to cover is races and how they are different in Vornyana. There are differences among a lot of them, but I'll cover the main ones. By distribution, the population of Vornyana is mostly made up of elves and halfling, elves including drow. This is because they're more fit to survive in the dark, and other races without dark vision aren't. Since most of the time it's night in Vornyana, that tends to be the case. Elves have an eye for the arcane, and their collegiate erupted on Morgrim, where their population density is the highest, after Gurn discovered the depth of magic. He was the first drow, by their logic, and all drow share his bloodline. There are two schools of thought on this. Pureblood drow, who believe heavily that the more clean one's bloodline is, the closer to true drow you are, and those who give no shits. Other than that, you have dark elves, wood elves, etc., which are mostly found in Timberschmidt, but they make up a very small portion of the elf population. Halflings are everywhere. They are one of the most widespread races in Vornyana by far. There are many kinds of halflings, but the majority of them are known as soulborn halflings, which are beaconborn. They have tails and sharp teeth like demons, which speaks to their Yoth origins. Dwarves are a hugely political race in Vornyana, and the majority of their population is in Levian. They have the second most advanced technology and easily the most advanced non-magical technology. They are scholarly people, very prideful of their accomplishments, but they're rarely warfaring. They prefer bureaucracy. Dragonborn come in 3 flavors, and each is very different. The following are the Dragonborn subspecies. The Frostborn is a culture and a type of Dragonborn found in the mountain ranges of Timberschmidt, though mainly in the Vorgen range. They are the direct descendants of a massive white dragon who died on the peaks of the range, and they have built their civilization inside the bones of that ancestor. They are large, pale-scaled, and bulky with large horns and thick manes that run down their back to the tip of their long, thick tail. They are very honor-bound, and their culture centralizes around personal accomplishments, though they are very united in their families as they are a communal raising species. The Rain Faniki are a type of Dragonborn found in most of the islands of Vornyana. They have a habit of staying hidden and look like iguanas in the face. They have webbed feet, large eyes that can look in multiple directions, and a fanned-out tail. Their scales are far more amphibian, and they can swim excellently. In addition, they are incredible hunters, but they tend to live in small tribes. They do not have a breath weapon. Instead, they can camouflage when standing still for an extended period of time. The Sulyani are a culture of Dragonborn found in the south of Morgrim. Their empire, Sul-Ravan, named after their dragon god, is a bane of the Imperium, as it is between 2 lay anchors and a territory that restricts trade. They have the most advanced magical technology in the world and are diverse in culture and study. They typically wear plated armor with scale-like patterns and tend to be taller and have more Eastern dragon-like appearances than their other Dragonborn cousins. They have long snouts, wispy mustaches, and a thin rope-like tail. They are sleek and graceful. They also do not have a breath weapon, but can instead use their tail like a whip to strike, and they often blade it for combat. Beyond this, the other races of note don't have too much going on, but we'll touch on a few of them. Tieflings can be beaconborn or not, even though they are demonkin. They only have 2 colors, red and blue, and they reflect the amount of Yacht's blood. Tieflings with both colors are obviously of mixed parentage. The Tabaxi were not discovered until about 25 years ago. They are a seafaring race who live on the ocean, on a floating city known as Zoveran. They like to trade and boast and tend to challenge everyone they meet to contests as they are extremely prone to competition. Alright, that's everything I think you'd need to know to get started. If you have any other questions about the world, I can answer them on Twitter @Zalthir, Xalthir, or you can send them to @TheHomebrewed, and I'll do my best. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, and I hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoy playing it.